Another thing you touched on was creativity, and expression.
Right.
So I guess here's the $1 million question.
Yeah.
So if I show you a picture of, say, a unicorn, right?
Yeah. We're starting to get to know each other a little deep now.
Oh, my boy Dexter.
Yeah, but
What's up, guys? It's Ron Diaz here. Today I've got a very special treat. A good buddy of mine from back when we were teenagers. Now he is a interior designing legend, Mr. I'm Never Home for an Interview. Featured on Georgia Straight, as well as other magazines. The legendary Dexter Dolores.
Thanks, man. Good to be here.
Yeah, good. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
So basically the purpose of this is I want to delve into your brain today.
All right.
With interior design.
Sounds good, yeah.
So I guess the first question is, when someone moves into a home, it's not the same way it was staged. It's just white walls with empty spaces.
Right.
Where do you start?
Well, I think the first thing to start is to really understand the client.
Right.
And to really understand what they want to accomplish for the home. The first thing that I try to accomplish is how are you going to live in this space? And so that's sort of the line of questioning that I jumpstart with them. It's just sort of like, well, how are you a family? Are you a young family, an older family? Are you a new couple? How do you imagine living in the space? And then it's just sort of taking those ideas and then translating it to what they now have, so their new home. How is that going to work with how they live? So a perfect example is, let's say they're two working professionals, husband and wife. They don't have any kids right now. They maybe have a dog, but they're never home. And so the idea of having a dining room, like a formal dining room, may not be appropriate for them. So that's something to sort of consider, and that's something that you sort of pick and discuss with the clients up first, because then there's no point in putting energy or putting design into those things if it's not going to be utilized, right? If it's not going to work for their lifestyle. So it's stuff like that, and just generalizing just sort of how they want their new home and their new life to sort of to work for them. Because that's all it really is, right? It's for them, it's their sanctuary. And so I'm here to assist in that and help create their new space.
And creating their new space. So it's not just design, it's function as well.
Definitely, yeah. And I think the whole form follows function, and design and function gets diluted a lot because it's sort of a cliche thing to discuss. But it's definitely sort of the forefront that you have to think about, right? Because it's one thing to make a space look pretty and to stage it and to put it all together and have it look good. But it's another thing to come into a space and have it look good to you,
right?
The person, the client living in the space, and to have it feel good and to have it work even better, to have it work good for yourself. I think those are the most key things, and that all falls under function for sure.
Right. Yeah, and I actually like what you mentioned. And personally, for me, I do have a formal dining area, family room.
Right.
But really, that dining table, while it costs quite a bit, really it's just a glorified place where I put my jackets and my keys when I'm tired. For guys like me, what would you replace that with, for example?
Well, I typically, if that's not a thing that the client usually uses, such as your example, the first thing I try to think about is, well, how can you use it? Like, if it is a place where you put down your papers and your keys and your jacket and whatnot, could it maybe then be an extension of your working area? Could it be like a home office or like a den? Let's say they're a client who entertains a lot, but they don't entertain around a formal table necessarily. So maybe it's a lounge. Maybe we put some nice comfy seating down, put some accent tables that sort of can be moved around here and there, and maybe that's a great spot to have some dessert and some coffee after your dinner, right? So it's stuff like that, and it's just sort of like, how do you want to maybe use that and utilize it better than this big expensive piece of furniture that's just that's just gonna hold your keys or whatever it is.
Makes sense. Cool. Another thing you touched on was creativity and expression.
Right.
So I guess here's the $1 million question. How do you even start creatively? Because that's such an intimidating thing,
right?
Especially for people who aren't as good at maybe expressing, or don't really know how they want to express themselves, or haven't thought that deep.
Right.
Think of your average Joe.
Yeah.
Where does he start?
Well, I think that's a perfect example right here in your hands. Magazines, right? Pull up these things, right? Pull up Pinterest, pull up Google House. Look
Cars.
at magazines, cars. It doesn't matter, right? It's all a point of inspiration. And I usually say to my clients before I even sit down with them in their space, is, hey, gather some images, gather some clippings from magazines, gather some stuff from Pinterest, Google, wherever you want to choose, Instagram, and sort of create this little portfolio or collection of images that we can discuss when we do actually sit down in the space and meet. And I think that's the perfect jump off point, because then we can look at it, and I myself, as the designer coming in, I know nothing about them. And so this sort of gives me a visual sort of snapshot of not necessarily what they want for the space, but what they see and what is aesthetically pleasing to them.
Right.
So then now that we have a collection of these magazine clippings or these Pinterest images or whatever you call them, we can kind of comb through them and look at them, and then I can ask questions like, well, why did you choose this car? Why did you choose this image of this room? What is it about it? And I think the key thing for me is, how does it make you feel? Because it's not necessarily like it's a perfectly nice room, it looks pretty, maybe you like that style, whatever you want to call that style on that image, but the important thing is, how does this image make you feel, and why did you choose it as sort of an inspiration for yourself, right? And it could be like, well, I like gray, and there's a lot of gray in that room.
Right.
Okay, so then that's a great jump off. Or maybe it could be much more complex than that, and it's sort of like, well, when I look at this room, it just makes me feel like home.
Right.
It makes me feel comfortable. So that's a perfect thing. And then now we jump in deeper into that, and it's, well, what about it do you think makes you feel like it's a homey place to be, or a comfortable place? And then you can kind of nitpick the little sort of details. Maybe it's that cozy rug or that comfy couch that you see in the image, and it's stuff like that. And that really sort of gives me a framework of sort of how they want to envision their life and their new home, and how they want to sort of create it aesthetically, and how that works with the function of the lifestyle as well. So,
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not just, it doesn't necessarily have to be furniture or anything, or like lights or anything. It can be anything.
It
So
can be
if I
anything.
show you a picture of, say, a unicorn, right?
Yeah.
Does that say anything about my personality as well?
Right.
You've just met this person, complete stranger. That's a tough task.
Yeah.
Taking that picture and associating it with maybe how they express themselves or what they like.
Yeah. Well, I think something, whenever I think about unicorns, it's definitely a fun thing. It's obviously it's a fictional
I don't
thing.
really like unicorns.
Yeah.
They're cool, but
yeah, we're starting to get to know each other a little deep now.
Oh, my boy Dexter.
Yeah, but no, like unicorns they're a fun thing. They're an aspirational thing, right? It's sort of, it's a mythical creature. And so what is it about? Yeah, what is it about that? Like, is it the idea of it being a mythical creature, or is it the idea that it represents
mystery?
Yeah, or what does it represent? And right, and so why does that sort of attract you as a person, right? Or whoever this person is gathering these images of unicorns. And then it's sort of like, picking from that. And you're right, it doesn't necessarily have to be images of home, images of furniture, things like that. It could be, like I said earlier, a car. It could be, an image of family. It could be, fashion. Fashion photos are great. If that's something that you really are inspired by, it could be anything. It could be the form, it could be the color, it could be what's evoking emotion through that image. It could be the photographer themselves, maybe you're attracted to that photographer's particular work. And that just sort of, once again, gives me the framework
how to approach.
Exactly, and sort of how you as a client see things, right? And how you get inspired by the things that you see. And it gives me sort of like that second eye that I can kind of jump into sort of your skin and see how that works.
Cool.
And how to make that into your new home.
So essentially you're putting yourself, so the whole purpose of that is to come up with kind of a template, or at least some guidance as to, okay, this is the direction we should be heading.
Exactly.
You like unicorns? Clearly you like mystery, legendary status, or something like that.
Yeah.
And so now you get to pick and choose how you're going to fill this space with that, all from that unicorn.
Right.
Right, okay, so assuming we get to pick the styles, there's so many different styles. You know, there's Luxe, there's West Coast Contemporary
Right.
that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Assuming we kind of have that, what piece of furniture would you start off at?
And I think that's a very important thing. I think there are so many styles that you mentioned, and there's, you know, rustic, West Coast contemporary, whatever you want to call it. And I think oftentimes clients get sort of stuck on the idea of, I want a modern space. And so they look for only modern things. But first and foremost, the key things to sort of look at is the major pieces that you're going to be grabbing. So if we're thinking actually building the space, the first thing you would choose is the couch, for example. That's a major piece. The dining table, if you do want a dining set, that's a major piece. So these are the big investment pieces. These are the things you're going to be putting.
Foundation.
Yeah, these are the things you're going to be putting a good chunk of your money and investment in. And so they should be something that obviously works with the aesthetic that you're trying to achieve. But more importantly, they need to work function. So I usually say grab a couch that's comfortable, that you obviously like, but it has to be something that works well and will be long lasting and durable for many years, and you build around it. And then you build around it. Because you're putting a lot of money, like I said, into that, so it can't break down after a year or two.
Right.
Because who knows how long you'll be in the space. You might be in the space for a year, you might be in the space for 10 years.
Yeah.
And so you want a good, solid couch that'll last that expansive time,
Right.
but it also needs to be versatile in the sense that it can translate into different things. Maybe in 2 years you don't like unicorns anymore, and you want to go into something crazier.
Yeah.
Then you can sort of transition everything else around that couch, and that couch will still feel at home
Right.
in the new decor, in the new sort of element that it's in, because it's neutral, it's a good shape, it's a sturdy piece, it'll last forever. And so those are the sort of things that you kind of start off with.
Of course. So avoid the fuzzy pink couch if you can.
If you can, unless you know you're going to live with a fuzzy pink couch for 10 years and you're happy with that, by all means, right? But
You never know, right?
you never know, yeah. So, you know, it's things like that. And that's also part of that discussion, right? Like, you know,
Right.
maybe that is something that you definitely want to have. So,
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Well, okay, one of the last questions here, in regards to furniture, for
Right.
example, does it matter, are all furniture the same? Does
Right.
it matter if you're getting it from, say, IKEA? If not IKEA, then
Right.
how do we make IKEA look amazing?
right, yeah.
Not saying IKEA is not.
No, yeah.
We're
I
not
mean, yeah.
sponsored by anyone here, but
Yeah, IKEA does get a bad rap sometimes, but also I think it has a lot of great followers because it is something that you can IKEA hack and something that you can translate
IKEA
into anything. And your first question is, does it matter where you get your
or
furniture?
how much you spend
Or
on
how
it.
much you spend on it? To an extent, yes.
Okay.
Back to the question of like the couch, for example, or the dining set, or the master bedroom bed frame. Those are investment pieces. So you do want to invest a little bit of money in that. I don't necessarily suggest IKEA unless that's the budget that you have, right? And that's totally fine, right? But if you can, try to invest in something a little bit more substantial than just plywood and stuff like that. If that's the case and you put money into that and everything else in your budget can only be IKEA, perfectly fine. Totally normal. I've had so many clients like that. And then it's into that next question that you asked, how do you make that work and how do you make it feel not like IKEA? And I think the key thing is to sort of change it up. Oftentimes IKEA shows a suite. So you go into their showroom and you see a suite of furniture, and so you see the same dresser with the same side table, the same bed,
Yes.
and they're all under that collection.
Yeah.
And oftentimes people are like, oh, this looks great, so I'll just buy all of it
together.
as one suite, right? And I think that's the pitfall is buying into that. And so you have to be able to be creative and pick and choose from different suites or different collections within IKEA, so that it looks kind of not necessarily eclectic, but it has a different sense of personality than IKEA.
Right.
So maybe you get that dresser because it's a functional thing. It's nice and big. It's square. It's modern. It's clean. It works for you. Great. Now maybe you switch it up and you get a side table or a nightstand that could be maybe more ornate, or maybe it's like a glossy piece of furniture that sort of contrasts with that wood dresser that you got. So it's changing it up and doing those sort of things, and it can by all means be all IKEA. But I think the idea is to pick and choose from throughout the whole showroom, so it doesn't feel like you're just running it, grabbing everything you see in one suite and taking it home and setting it up, right? So it's stuff like that, and then on to the next level of that. It's just how do you now incorporate decor
and add pieces to this foundation that you built.
And like decor things is great because that's stuff you can find in other places. You can go vintage shopping, you can go to Home Sense, you can go to all these big box stores and get a plethora of different looking things that will now inject the personality that's unique to you, right? So it doesn't necessarily have to be IKEA all the way down to the artwork on the wall, right? It can be IKEA up to the furniture, and then after that, then you can kind of change it up.
Whatever the heck you want.
Exactly.
Great. So, last question, I guess second to last really quick question. So now you have your foundation, you have your budget, you kind of have your style idea. When you're adding those little pieces, is there a certain guideline you're looking at, or is it like a free-for-all, whatever I feel like on Monday, whatever I feel like on Tuesday, I'm just gonna buy it?
I think to an extent it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
You have to have a sense of, you have to have an editing mind in a sense that you can't just buy a bunch of things and throw it into your space because they won't feel cohesive necessarily. So you have to have a sense of sort of what speaks to you and how does that relate to the quote unquote style of your home. So let's say in general the style of your home is a modern home. You're not going to get something that's sort of really ornate or really traditional looking. You might get that one piece
just
that's
sort of accent.
That one piece that's sort of an accent piece, or maybe it's a family heirloom or something. But it's not. You're not going to throw that, and then you can also throw in something from the 1970s or something like that, right? So there's a sense of eclecticism that you can incorporate, but you have to sort of be really careful with that and make sure that you edit it properly so that the overlying concept of the home is still so, and it could be as simple as tying it all together with one wood color, right? Or it's all gray. They all have different eclectic shapes and forms, but everything is gray. It could be as simple as that, right? And or it can be much more complex, but it's sort of tying it all together so that it feels cohesive in a way. And the easiest thing is, once again, the wood stain color, or just like a unified look. It's all white, right? So,
perfect.
Yeah.
Final question before it gets too crazy here.
Right.
Where do they reach you?
Well, you can find me anywhere. On Instagram, I'm at Dex Dolores, and then DexterDolores.com would be my website. So,
awesome. Perfect. Thanks for doing this, my friend.
Sure.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it. That's it. We're out.